voice of FinTech.
Welcome to Voice of FinTech, a podcast mapping out the Swiss and global FinTech scene, connecting FinTech enthusiasts with startups, incubators, accelerators, business angels and VCs, and incumbents interested in partnerships. Voice of FinTech will help you navigate the FinTech ecosystem. Here you can listen to the startup founder stories, what investors and incumbents are looking for when dealing with startups, and find out more about resources provided by incubators and accelerators. My name is Rudy Falad and I'll be hosting this podcast. Hello and welcome to Voice of FinTech. Today we're talking to Shub and we're going to talk about sustainable compliance and how does blockchain and AI can help you to build a sustainable compliance solution. Shub is based in India. He's been running his company for a long time, and he's been also an adjunct faculty in AI at many of the famous technological universities in India. So I'm looking forward to find out more what's cooking in this field and what's behind these buzzwords as well. So how are you today, Shub?
Thanks, Rudy, for your invitation. I'm doing good, and I hope you're doing great as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the 2020 seems like it's been extended for another season. But aside that, I'm lucky and everything is fine. So thank you for joining us. And first question for me is that, you're a serial entrepreneur and thought leader in the blockchain and AI space. So I'd like to know about people's motivations first. What has attracted you to do it and to this field?
If you see artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, cloud, blockchain, right? So with the advent and adoption of these technologies, right, we are experiencing the next big technological revolution, maybe the one after internet, right? So I think this is also popularly termed as the fourth industrial revolution. But what I realized, right, so over this period of time here is that stand alone, right, any of these technologies may not be of great use, right? So typically, that's where I understood that the true potential of these technologies, can be unleashed, right? Only when they can be used in parallel, or one can be a combination of like a blockchain and AI. So this drew me to this kind of technologies, which are more advanced than the technologies that were prevalent. So early in 2014 itself, right, when the buzzword data science was not there, at that point of time itself, I dived into the field of statistical modeling, slowly got driven to blockchain. And then I found out that, hey, if you can cook something using build a recipe by bringing these two technologies together, it can make wonders. So that's what attracted me.
All right, cool. So what is your latest or current venture called PiChain, right? What is it about? What is the problem that you're trying to solve?
At PiChain, our goal is to make compliance programs simple, transparent, and easy. Our current focus is primarily ensuring the onboarding compliance and the goal is to make them sustainable, right? So today we are very much focused on rural India, or Bharat, how the way we call it. And we are ensuring that the onboarding compliances, in fact, the whole onboarding process for the unbanked, underbanked is simple, yet very thorough. So that's what we are doing at PiChain. But saying that, let me talk a bit more about the problem which drew us, the co-founders, together to this particular problem area. So if you see, compliance, unfortunately, is still a black box. And three key stats, which I'm going to talk over here, will bolster this fact. Number one is very specifically that 1% of all the illicit transfers that are being brought to light, and the estimated amount of the illicit transfers that happen every year is roughly $1 trillion. That's a huge amount of money. But unfortunately, the whole set of compliances or tools which are available bring only 1% of it to light. The second and one of the important thing is that the regulatory fines which have been imposed right post the meltdown in 2008 onwards is roughly 450 to 500 billion, right? And that's a huge amount of money. And believe me, these fines are imposed on banks, but whose money it is? It is our money. right? So which where interests are cut, or the growth money for which we have probably put in the money is
Right.
cut and paid as fines. And probably the last one is even though with incumbent systems which are prevalent in banks, right? So roughly every day, 1.4K alerts are raised per branch. Unfortunately, 97% of them are false positives. So we understand that compliance is still a mystery and a problem worth solving.
All right, understood, understood. But let's pick on that one word or buzzword, which is a bit new to me: sustainable compliance. What does that mean? Because when people talk about sustainability, they talk about the planet or sustainable finance, green tech, etc. This is, I guess, something else, right?
Absolutely. I think sustainability in terms of green also means that you continue with nurturing our planet by doing good for it. Here we are doing good for our customers. So where what we are trying to do is that we're trying to increase the overall compliance confidence score of the bank or financial institution. We are efficiently utilizing the regulatory capital and finally reducing the cost of compliance. Right. So these are the three things that we are trying to achieve as sustainability for the compliance programs or the compliances in the banks or financial institutions. Now, what we are trying to do here is that we are trying to achieve these three things year on year, right? And whenever a bank financial institution is able to achieve it year on year, they have basically reached the goal of sustainable compliance. So that's what we mean by sustainable compliance.
I see. All right, understood. I mean, I also looked into your website or on your website, of course, and I saw you have many products and then you have solutions. So what does that mean? Are when I talk to early stage startups, and often they want to sell products to banks, and so it's a B2B fintech. Often the issue is that, well, they are being forced to customize their product so much that essentially they become consulting companies, right? So what do you have here? You have many products which you productize, and it's the same for every client. And then you have solutions in addition as advising or consulting, or how does that work for you?
For us, what we understand is that when we build a product, it should have huge potential. We build products because it can be scaled. Not only for one industry, it can be scaled for multiple industries. So the product ethos that with which we build any product is with that ethos. But of course, as a startup, we have only this much energy on this many number of people, or this many limited, or the resources are limited. So that's where what we do is that we take the product, customize it for an industry, or basically solve a specific industry need and provide it. So today, the very focus that we have, because we are domain experts in financial technology, worked in tech, right? So this is the area where these products are being customized and provided to our customers. And of course, we don't do consultation. The goal here is that the product is built in such a way that it can be adopted by the industry, and it
Exactly.
is built with basically the ingredients to be adopted at scale.
All right, but so what are the solutions then that you call on your website? How does that differ from products?
Correct. So if you see the product, right, for example, I will talk about a very simple one, right? If you talk about, let's say, KYC, right? So KYC, for example, is one of the steps in the complete onboarding process. Now, KYC for a financial industry is different from a KYC, probably if you see the gaming industry, if you see the onboarding the vendors in probably a CPG industry, right? So when you build KYC, you build it as a product that it can be used across the industry. But whenever you see a solution, which is probably for commercial banking, so commercial banking onboarding would be done by this particular product, but it's then the KYC is customized for commercial banking. So that's how we differentiate the solution and the products.
All right. Let me pick on one example, though, because you talked about client onboarding a lot, right?
Yeah.
And you say that you help people achieve 100% compliance, zero penalties, and 200% peace of mind, right? On your LinkedIn profile as well. So
Absolutely.
if
Yeah.
I were to challenge you on this a little bit, because I talked to some companies who focus just on ID verification. In the past, in many countries, especially in Switzerland, you wanted to open a bank account, you have to show up there in person and things like this. But nowadays, with the neobanks, you can do it from your home through scanning of your passport and taking a selfie or video and things like this. But even these online companies, they say, well, we don't guarantee our clients 100% results, that they will be never fakes in the system. However, if you compare it to the humans checking the passport, even if person shows up in the branch, the results are still much, 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 much better, right? So it's not 100%. So how does that work in your case when you talk about client onboarding and you say that there's a population which is currently unbanked or underbanked? So probably there is not much digital footsteps behind them, right? So how do you do it so that you avoid the penalties and issues with KYC?
I think it's a very interesting question, and thanks for asking this. Right. So, what do we do? Basically, we are catering for the rural India, and we ensure that we verify from source. So that's one thing which we do. Unlike many ID verification companies, right, which verify the document by using the document only or the information in the document only, we verify directly from the source. So we verify from the every government database here in India.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps us to ensure that the filtration is proper and 100%. Now, there are ways you can achieve 100%, right? It can be that wherever in doubt, right, you basically say that, okay, we are unable to fetch this data. And so we would request you to do XYZ more verification steps. So we ensure that in a dynamic manner, right, we change the steps based on the situation. So what typically happens here is that in a normal scenario, the cycle or the flow is fixed, and this is the only flow probably someone can take to verify himself or herself. But for our case, we have ensured that that part is flexible. If at one particular flow of identification via a particular document, the individual is not able to properly or in a confident way basically verify himself or herself, can choose the next flow. And we ensure that all these flows are verified from source. So this is just one of the examples. We also bring in behavioral, contextual data, and multiple other data points, and then connect them. So this way, it's not just one way of verification. It's multiple different attributes which come together. We connect them together, teach them, and provide it to our end customer as well as our customer. So this ensures that there is a complete audit trail of what has happened, how it has happened, and also since everything is from the source, we ensure it is compliant, and that's why we can say, okay, it's 100%.
Okay, so somebody comes with an ID, you check it versus a federal database. If it matches, it's good. If it doesn't, then you have other alternative means to proceed, right?
Absolutely. And even it might happen that the federal ID which is provided may be forced one, right? So you can't just check the name or the number and just go ahead. You need to check multiple attributes. So we take care of that. So ensuring that there is no forgery, there is no fraud, and there is no impersonification.
All right. And you mentioned also behavioral analysis. So how do you do that?
As an individual, you have a set of behavioral characteristics. I do have my set of behavioral characteristics. But then if you take a population versus a sample, you understand that from the sample, you can still derive the population of who is right and who is wrong. So that is typically how the whole thing is derived.
All right. I mean, all I wanted to know is if you use the mobile data, for example, right? Which, I think you would need obviously the consent of people, right? This is a big debate in Europe now with the pandemic and all. How much of the tracing do you want to allow the government to do for you, right? Let's focus on who are your target clients. I sense this is a B2B business, right? But are you focusing on financial services, which are regulated? That's where the KYC is mandated by the regulator anyway. Or this can be extended to other industries as well. How does that work?
Well, I think just to basically first let me clear of this part, right? We are not just doing KYC, right? KYC is just one part in the whole process of onboarding. KYC,
of course, yeah,
right. So for us, right, the target customers are primarily micro, small, medium banks, NBFCs, FIs, and FinTechs. So we focus only on this segment, right? And today, we have our products have gone live, and we have garnered over 30 plus customers right here in India, right? And we are working with them in a very short span.
And I mentioned at the beginning that you're also adjunct faculty, whether that's related to AI, and I know you speak a lot on the deep tech. So what does that mean to you, deep tech, and how is it related to fintech or regtech in your case?
But yes, let me talk more about the deep tech and fintech. So deep tech, basically, are the companies which are founded on the basically any scientific discovery or meaningful engineering or innovation, right? So that's what, according to me, is deep tech. Now, we as PiChain have built our own proprietary platform called DeepPi, so which actually is our core scientific engine, and that is today catering primarily to the onboarding compliance for financial industry. So that is the way we are using the deep tech into catering the financial companies. So deep tech for fintech.
I see. All right. But let me dig into that education aspect, though, still a little bit, because, we spend some time with the young people, with the students, right? Talking about the AI. Do you think that they are better prepared to work in a workplace where the AI is commonplace than, let's say, the generation before? Again, what I have in mind is obviously you have a lot of Hollywood fiction portraying AI is taking over, replacing us, or media talking about replacing jobs. Some of the more detailed analysis is about replacing us, right? So instead of that, some of the mundane stuff, it can be done by robots or by algorithms, and humans can focus on creative stuff. So how do you see the mood among the young people towards the AI? Because obviously, when you talk to people who already have been working in certain jobs, I feel that the percentage of people who mistrust it to some degree is probably a bit higher than among the young generation. What's your view on that?
I see the generation which are coming to my classes are very optimistic about AI. And you are very correct that there have been scientific fiction movies which have glorified AI to some level. Some of them has actually said AI has got a lot of bad aspects to it. But saying that, what I do see here is that I see two kinds of student. One who wants to become a data scientist by designation, as in like they just want to become data scientist. I mean, they don't care, they just want to complete the course and become data scientist. While I do see other class of students as well who are basically learning AI holistically to apply it into their business use cases. Just mark my words. I mean, every use case is not for AI. So if you are force fitting it, that's not going to work. So there are use cases for AI, as you rightly mentioned, that there are repetitive tasks. There are tasks where things can be done customized at a scale. AI is great for it. But when it comes to novel business decision making or novel decision making, I believe people are best at it. So all they need is the good information, which if catered to them at the right time when they're making decision, I'm sure people are better decision makers as compared to AI. So that's where I see that, yes, many people who are focusing on the applicability of AI understands it better and uses it in the better, meaningful way. Whereas there is a group who wants to become data scientist just for the designation. There is where my scare is.
What do you mean by this?
Well, what I mean over here is that we should aim at understanding the topic to primarily apply it in business use cases rather than seeing data scientist as a glorified job and running to get a job as a data scientist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or get a great package or a good salary. That's not the goal which the people coming to the classes or learning AI should be. It should be more on the other way. What is the practical applicability aspects, right? How and why I should get here, right? What is the basic knowledge which I need to have to basically learn and become a person who can be an applied AI scientist, right? So around that, right? I think the focus should be more around that instead of just becoming a data scientist by designation.
All right, of course. I mean, that's how I would see it as well in Europe, where sometimes there should be a better connection between the technical universities and those sort of degrees and the business people, right? And as you said, it's a means to an end, right? It shouldn't be the end.
Absolutely.
So, I mean the technology. So, all right. I mean, let's change the tack a little bit and think about the broader, bigger picture as well. So, could you comment on the Indian fintech scene as one of the participants there? So, of course, what are so of course you have your views and perhaps some of it's related to you. So, maybe aside from RegTech and what you do, what do you think is going well on an Indian fintech scene, and what do you think that it needs some improvement?
I mean, if you see India has a very vibrant fintech scene now, right? We see every day new startups coming up with fresh new financial products, and these are catering to very interesting segments, right? Segments which have probably never been explored before. For example, we are working with one of our customers who are basically providing home loans to the self-employed people. We are basically providing loans primarily to migrant laborers, right? So I mean, we are working with such kind of very innovative fintech companies, and we see them coming up perhaps every day. We see a new fintech startup coming up. A startup is also working on providing financial products to children. So yeah, I mean, we see all these new startups coming up with very interesting ideas, and we are glad that we could facilitate them because we have an innovative onboarding solution. But where I do see that more effort has to be done is from the perspective that if government integrates technology driven startups in its action plan to boost the financial well-being of the rural India, I think that will definitely be a great effort from the side of the government. Few other areas like the CKYC, GSP to GST, all of these which are primarily licensed to only a handful of entities, I believe this licensing should go, and like how open banking has created a great revolution across the world, I believe the areas of CKYC, GST that we have in place, if open APIs and open integration, I mean, APIs are given openly, and then more innovation can happen. And this innovation would definitely come from technology startups, which are there catering to many different aspects.
I see. I see. Interesting. Well, I know it is very hard to run a startup, right? It's a all-consuming job. On the other hand, I try to ask around people for book tips anyway. So, is there any business book that you like a lot and you read recently, or something that has affected you a lot? I'm also thinking about maybe turning this book tips from guests into a book club or book tips club. So, bear with me if we set it up on Clubhouse. You may hear your suggestions, so maybe be careful as well.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely keep myself engaged whenever I get time in reading books, as well as surfing the internet to read some scholar pieces. But one book which I definitely I like to recommend every early stage founder, and even maybe late stage founders as well, but early stage founder, because where we all have to make a lot of hard decisions, right? So there is this amazing book, The Hard Things About Hard Things, by Ben Horowitz. Right? So I think that's an amazing book because it talks about a lot many realistic scenarios that every founder would definitely go through once in their life, where they have to make some decisions. But these are hard decisions, but you have to make decisions. So this is an amazing book. I would recommend everyone to perhaps read it once.
Yeah, it's good. It came up recently on another podcast as well. So definitely a must to check it out. And we are at the beginning of 2021. So what's in store for you for the rest of the year and for PiChain, obviously?
So I think it was interesting that it was brought up by somebody else as well. So great, because I believe this book. I'm sorry, I'm just still continuing the last question. But
Sure.
yeah, I believe most of the founders who have read this book have got influenced with that. I believe that's perhaps the reason. But yes, I think getting back, what's in store for PiChain, right? Apart from growth, funding, and other nice things, right? What we would like to do this year, right, is that we have to generate more value for our customers. So that's one of the key goal, right? That we have built this startup with. PiChain is built with one value, that we can make compliance sustainable. But to make the company sustainable, you have to basically increase the value generation year on year. So that's the goal that we have in place. And this year as well, we want to ensure that our customers get more value from our products.
All right, makes sense. And well, speaking of the customers, so if there are any interested parties or potential customers who would like to find out more about PiChain, where do they find out? What's the best way to reach out and get in touch?
The best is our website, www.pichainlabs.com. We are also on LinkedIn, Twitter, and other social medias as well. And I am reachable everywhere. You can email me, shub@pichainlabs.com. Happy to answer any of the questions, queries, or anything that you have. I am also very much accessible on phone, WhatsApp. Please feel free to reach out to me. And do not hesitate. Let's connect. And if there is interesting discussion, why not? Let's take it ahead.
All right, brilliant. So thank you very much, Shub, and good luck to you and PiChain.
Thank you so much, Rudy. Thanks for the invitation, and what an amazing discussion it had been.
Thank you for listening to Voice of FinTech podcast. If you haven't already, check out also voiceoffintech.com, where you will find all the episodes and additional resources related to the podcast. You can also subscribe to Voice of FinTech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or any other podcast app that you like. If you have any suggestions on the topics or guests or how to make this podcast better for you, please email us at info@voiceoffintech.com. Happy to hear from you. Thank you.